Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Emotional Embuffination podcast. I am your host, David Bolton, and here on Emotional Embuffination, we are training to become emotionally buff enough to overcome any conflict in life. And at the same time as we're doing that, we're working on optimizing and trying to make sure that we're just feeling as much as possible all those positive, joyful, just happy feelings that we can experience. This podcast is just one of a number of resources I have available. If you want to learn more, check out the Emotional Embuffination website, which is embuff.com. That's EMBUFF.com. Also, when you're on the website, make sure that you sign up for my weekly newsletter, which has just quick weekly emotional embuffination tips to help you on your emotional embuffination journey. Okay, on today's show, we are going to be talking about Tude. And when I say Tude, I'm not talking about a 1990s reference to attitude. I'm talking about gratitude. Gratitude is just such an unbelievably important topic. And I know it sounds a little cliche because it's also such a popular topic and everybody's talking about it constantly, but it is absolutely a critical element in your arsenal for both feeling better on a day-to-day basis, but also in resolving conflict. So all these things that we talk about, emotional embuffination is about resolving conflict and feeling better, optimizing happiness. Gratitude is a huge mechanism that's going to get you there. So let's talk about gratitude. Okay, first off, what is it? Now I think most people kind of know, but in a general sense, we just say it's being thankful, showing appreciation for what you have around you, the things you have, the things you're receiving, the things that exist, the fact that you have a body that functions as well as it does, the fact that you're alive, like even if you have disabilities or an injury or something's not going on in your life the way you want it to, it could always be worse. And so just having thankfulness, aka gratitude, for the stuff that's around you that you do have really changes so much. And that's what we're going to explore a little bit today. It's not even just the act of saying I'm thankful for something, but it also sort of becomes a trait. And a lot of people distinguish between these, and some even break it down even further. But gratitude starts to become part of who you are in certain circumstances. Like, that's a grateful person. You're in sort of a state of, or have the trait of gratitude. The people that have that as a trait sort of go around acting thankful and often just happier, more agreeable, get along with people better. And I believe that you can turn the habit, like start off with just the action of expressing gratitude. And because I've experienced this, be sort of curmudgeon-y, start practicing gratitude in various ways, and then swing that into it becoming a trait. Make it part of you where you just walk around feeling thankful for things, and that alters the way that you interface with people. We're going to explore that a little bit more in just a sec here. But if you listen to, and feel free to go back and listen to it again, or if you haven't listened to it, go back and check it out. I have a previous podcast episode where I was talking about the Big Five personality aspect scale. And one of the personality traits that we talk about is agreeableness in that. And agreeableness is very much how you're interacting with other people, how likely you are to try to get along with others. And gratitude, I believe, is one of the things that can start to shift agreeableness. Like, if you are perpetually practicing gratitude and you make gratitude a part of who you are, I think it starts to alter where you are in the agreeableness spectrum on the Big Five. So go back and check that out. But it's so powerful. And just think about this, on that level. If you see a person that is just always happy, they're always seem thankful for everything, and then some weird little bump in the road comes along, most of those people don't just immediately devolve into a weeping mess. On the other hand, the people who are perpetually curmudgeon-y, perpetually angry, perpetually upset about what's going on in the world, the second something goes wrong, it turns into, oh yeah, that's just my luck. Of course that would happen. Well, that's just what those people would do. Or, they get angry and upset, and it just becomes this sort of further proof that the universe is this terrible thing. On the other hand, that person that's happy, the person that's always expressing gratitude and seems grateful, some little bump in the road comes along and they're like, we'll get over this. And so here again, just in terms of how you want to live, like I would much rather feel happy. I would much rather be in an optimal, joyful state as much as possible in my time on this planet. I don't want to feel negative. I don't want to feel curmudgeony. I don't want to feel jaded about the way that the world is. And by practicing gratitude on a regular basis as a just sheer behavior, you can turn this into, I am firmly convinced, again, because I've personally experienced this, you can firmly, I'm firmly convinced that you can transition this into part of what you are. Now, with that kind of background in place, let's talk a little bit about where this started with me. So, when I was working as a family law attorney, I was doing all sorts of custody fights and divorces and that kind of thing. And I remember there were two cases that really spun me off into this gratitude direction. What happened was they were very, very similar. And it involved two different dads. And these two different dads really wanted to have some kind of parenting time with their daughters. And they had, both had kids. They weren't married. They wanted to go through litigation because the moms were preventing them from seeing their kids. In both situations, just unjustifiably, they should have had some time, right? So we end up going to court and kind of fighting over these cases, but court is not fun and court takes a while. And so in both of these situations, we're going through this litigation. Both of the dads seemed very, very reasonable. And both of the dads were taking my advice and following my advice and listening to me, and everything seemed okay. So we proceed on through the litigation. Both of these cases end up at a trial where we get an order that says we get some kind of parenting time. And then in both situations, about a year and a half into the litigation, or excuse me, and they're following pretty closely on the same tracks. So in about a year and a half into the litigation, I remember stopping and looking at what was going on. In one of the two cases, dad completely lost his mind. He stopped doing anything remotely rational, stopped listening to my advice, was going out of his way almost to sabotage the case, was doing really blatantly stupid things with the other party, and even around his kid in ways that it was coming back and creating all this evidence for the other side to basically say, look, he's an irrational, crazy person and he shouldn't be around the kid anymore. And in this situation with the one dad, it really blew up on us later because he was taking all these actions that just seemed where he seemed like he was just losing his mind as the litigation was going on. It really bit us, and we started having a lot of trouble maintaining our position because he was just losing it. Now, the other dad was essentially going through the same process, and yet he was fine. We get a year and a half into the litigation. He's still listening to my advice, still doing very reasonable things. He's responding to the other side very calmly and rationally, and we're going along. And so I thought, what is the difference between these? Like, why did this one dad lose his mind and start just going off the rails when this other dad over here is just fine and he's still managing the conflict well, going through? He seems happy when I talk to him. The other dad did not. The dad that was like off the rails was very angry every time I talked to him when he hadn't been at the beginning of the litigation. It just had turned into this like just pot of anger that he was walking around with. Well, I'm looking at the two cases, and one of the things that I noticed that was different was that the dad that did not lose his mind, that seemed very calm still, was single. And the other dad, the one that was losing it, had a new significant other that he lived with. And I know for a fact that he and the new significant other spent an enormous amount of time at home sitting there complaining about the other side, saying, can you believe that she did this and did this? And they were just every day they would go home and they would spend a lot of time and energy focusing on how angry they were about the litigation, the fact that this other person was doing whatever. So then I started looking at other cases I had, and I thought, wow, let me think about the different places where people have kind of lost their minds as the litigation progressed, because it's not an uncommon phenomenon. And I noticed it wasn't a perfect correlation, but there was definitely a correlation where people with these new significant others were kind of, that I had either thought or had reason to believe or knew, they were going home and complaining about the other side on a regular basis. those people were kind of losing it way more than the people that were on their own, or I had some reason to think were not uh, engaging in this perpetual like anger. Now, this is I have a chapter in the Emotional Embuffination book. I have a chapter where I'm talking about gratitude, and this story is kind of where I start with it in the book. And to me, this was a really fascinating illustration of the direction you can send your mind in by what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And this goes back to what we were saying a second ago about the traits. You can alter the traits that you start to exhibit. You can become a person of gratitude, or you can become a person of anger and vitriol and resentment and bitterness, depending on what you're doing on that day-to-day basis. These people that were going through this process of every day speaking out to their significant others about how angry they were and how much they were upset about whatever the other person was doing, became super toxic and very unreasonable. On the other hand, the people that were not doing that on a regular basis were totally fine and often were even happy. And so just the sheer nature of what, and this is not people that, at least to my knowledge, were even engaging in or not engaging in. I mean, they were not engaging in, but the dad who was okay, I don't have any reason to think he was engaging in gratitude exercises. He might have been, I don't know, but I didn't have any reason to think he was. Now imagine what you can, the power of altering this kind of daily like vitriol and anger and spewing hatred. Replace that with a daily exercise of walking around talking about how grateful you are about whatever, even if it's your enemies, saying, I'm grateful for whatever you can think of that this other person is bringing to the table. You end up in an extremely, extremely different place. And this is not just me making this up. I mean, there's a lot of research around all of the benefits of gratitude. And I'll give you just a couple of examples here. There was a 2003 study where they broke subjects into 3 groups. And in the first group, they have people that are going to write about what they're grateful for. Second group, they write about things that irritated them. And in the third group, they just wrote about events that had taken place during their week. This was the control group. Each group submitted a weekly report proving they were doing this, and they did this for a period of 9 weeks. And at the end of the experiment, the gratitude group, the one that was just talking about what they were grateful for, was not only feeling better on reports that they were measuring afterwards, but were reporting fewer physical complaints, and they were exercising more. So not only did this impact mindset, like that is to say they were feeling better, but it rippled out into their bodies were changing. It was changing their internal chemistry in some way. And they were going out of their way to exercise more, which in and of itself is going to start bringing all sorts of additional health benefits. Another really interesting study, and again, there's a million studies out there because gratitude research has been just heavily done, and it seems to just universally show positive things about all the crazy benefits of gratitude. But we'll just highlight these couple here. This other study, they involved 300 adults who were looking for mental health assistance, and primarily related to things like depression and anxiety. Here again, they broke subjects into 3 groups. One group wrote a letter of gratitude to another person 1 time a week for only 3 weeks. So they really just wrote 3 letters, just saying, I'm grateful for whatever. Second group writes about their deepest thoughts and feelings about some negative event. Third group, the control group, didn't have any writing activities. So those in the group that were writing the letters exhibited better mental health between 4 weeks and 12 weeks after this. After this study had ended, they were still reporting better mental health. Think about that for just a second. Only 3 letters, 1 time a week for just 3 weeks. That's it. And a month to 3 months later, they're still exhibiting the effects. That's incredibly powerful. Just a small amount of expressing gratitude altered how they were feeling for months. It gets even more interesting than that. They study all these participants in an fMRI machine 3 months after and they find that the people in the gratitude letter group were showing like different activation in the brain. Like there was greater activation in the medial prefrontal cortex. So it was clearly having some sort of physiological impact just by expressing gratitude at a very nominal rate. Again, this is just a few examples. There's so much research out there. It is crazy. I mean, there's a mountain of it. There are studies showing that expressing gratitude on a regular basis improves sleep. There's studies showing that gratitude can impact in a positive way your blood pressure. It's shown to different studies show that it improves your exercise. There are studies showing that it impacts your immune system. There are actually studies showing that regularly expressing gratitude impacts morbidity rates. That is to say, it extends your lifespan. There's research showing that gratitude can impact in a positive way heart illness, like heart problems. It has physiological changes. There's one study that talked about how it improves glucose levels in your body. There's another study that talks about how it can modify pain tolerance, like pain tolerance of all things, which again goes back to like the person who is walking around and just seems happy no matter what, and just nothing seems to derail them, or it takes a lot to derail them. Whereas, if you're just curmudgeony all the time and you're upset about life, then it doesn't take very much. You're derailed almost immediately. There's so much research out there. It's crazy how it's astounding to me that people don't want to engage in some sort of practice of gratitude. Even a tiny bit has a profound impact. Now, on another level, ignoring just kind of the direct benefits to you in your body and kind of your mindset, think about this for a second. Gratitude and some sort of regularly developing the habit of regularly expressing gratitude starts to alter your environment. And the reason for this is that think this through for a second. If I go around and I'm perpetually like making the people around me aware of the fact that I'm grateful for all these various things that they're doing. If I go to the office and I tell a receptionist, for example, like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that you're here. I couldn't do this job without you. I love the way you do this, or I love the way you do that. Your hair looks great today. Guy or girl, doesn't matter. Whatever position they're in, if I am just in the habit of constantly going around the people that are around me and expressing gratitude, they're more likely to feel positively towards me. If I go into the office or wherever, a restaurant, anything, I'm just like, how are you? I'm angry because life sucks. I turn into this weird Eeyore that nobody really wants to hang out with because I'm just depressing, or they don't want to be caught in the path of my rage, or whatever. So if all the people around me like being around me, they're more likely to hang out. They're more likely to do things with me. They're more likely to give me nice things or do nice things for me. And so I'm not saying you should do this as a selfish mechanism, but just intrinsically, it starts to alter the way people are reacting to you. If you are perpetually walking around and expressing gratitude, if you start treating people well, they're way more likely to treat you well back. Now, this doesn't mean you have to go around with the expectation. You just treat people well without expectation of return. And just as a natural byproduct of that, your environment improves. This also feeds into the conflict resolution aspects of gratitude. And this is something I preach all the time about when you're in a fight. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier about the two dads who, one's losing his mind. If you're not practicing this sort of gratitude and you're in some sort of prolonged fight with someone, especially if you're in like a custody fight, for example, because those can go on for years. But if there's any kind of duration of what's going on, or even if there isn't, if you just get angry and you're just expressing constant vitriol, then that starts to bleed over to the other person. They absorb that, they sense your anger, and they feed it right back to you. People are often not aware of this. As a family law attorney, I had I can't even count the number of times I would have a client come to me and say, I had XYZ happen and I was super calm and I was very polite with this person. And then they just blew up at me and there was just nothing I could do. And then oftentimes I'll have recordings, like video or audio recording of these conversations. And they'll be like, yeah, I went in and I knew that I was being recorded because I was recording myself. And so I made sure I was on my best behavior and I was very calm and polite. And then I listen and then they sound super snarky or they're blowing up. And I'm like, on what universe do you think this is calm or nice? And they don't realize it. They think that they're being nice, but they're really being snippy or just angry or something. And so you are probably absolutely oblivious, because we all are. I mean, this is another chapter in the Emotional Embuffination book. There's one called "There's No Log in My Eye," in which I talk about how most people are very unaware of the things that they're contributing negatively to a situation, self included. I mean, it's hard to see failings in yourself. We are just hardwired not to. And so when you don't see those things, when these things just sort of inherently pop up outside of your radar, then you can be unknowingly contributing to conflict and blowing it up for no reason. And this is what a lot of litigants I saw would do. And I see a lot of people do this generally in conflict, is they will unconsciously start conveying anger. And then when you start to convey that anger to the other side, they spit it right back at you. They say, well, if you're going to be angry, and that they don't consciously do this, well, sometimes they do, but they can very unconsciously do this. If you start spitting out anger, the anger is going to come right back at you and they're going to get angrier. And then when you're getting more anger, you feed the anger right back again. And everything just keeps inching its way upwards until you've got this fireball of drama, which nobody wants. And so you have to be very careful about these subconscious cues that you're offering to others if you want to control the level of hostility, because you don't want to experience more anger and volleys of attack from the other side. And so if you start to engage in gratitude as a defense to this, the second you feel frustrated by someone or something, you just start thinking, okay, what am I grateful for about this person? It starts to nullify that subtle vitriol that spews out of you, because you stop thinking of them as just evil incarnate, which is where we otherwise start to go. And instead you think of this person as another person that you have some gratitude for in various ways. You just disagree with them on this issue. And then they pick up on those cues and it really drops down the level of the conflict dramatically. Now that can feel difficult. You may be rolling your eyes and be like, my ex, or this political opponent, or this person over here that's promoting a position that's totally different from me. There's no way I could ever think of something to be grateful for about that person. But look, my go-to every time I'm in this situation is, if I can't think of something else that I'm grateful for, I will just drop into, as a starting point, well, this person is offering me a challenge, and this challenge is going to require that I level up, and it's going to give me the opportunity to become stronger. It's going to give me the chance to become more emotionally embuffed. You can start there and then just start thinking about any little thing that you can think of that this person may be good at, or that they're offering, or that they've done for you, even if it's in the past. Even if it wasn't coming from a positive place in your mind, just find something, some little foothold that's going to offer you the chance to express some gratitude. You don't have to go out and say this to them. I mean, you can, but this is more just an exercise that you do, so that when you do interface with this person, your reactivity drops down a lot, and you just start to think of this as, okay, we're just disagreeing on this issue, and not like, oh, this evil bastard, I'm just ready to pop on him. And then it just feeds the craziness out of control. There are also, this is another important element in my mind, law of attraction implications. Now, in Emotional Embuffination, we talk about the law of attraction all the time. I feel like gratitude is crazy important when we're talking about manifestation and trying to control what's going on in a law of attraction sense. So if you're not familiar with it, I talk about this in various other places. I've got some podcast episodes previously where you can check out a lot more. But the law of attraction is essentially this idea that like thoughts attract like manifestations. So if I start thinking about things, they're going to surface in my world somewhere. They start to pop up as manifestations. My thoughts become reality in essence. Now, within that framework, what typically thwarts us in our manifestational efforts is thoughts of lack. So if I say I want to have a thing, and usually we go through this pattern where I say, I really want that thing. I really want that thing. I don't have that thing. Why don't I have that thing? I should have that thing and I don't have that thing. And you get really frustrated. And so from a law of attraction perspective, what you're doing is you're saying, I don't have. And then the universe says, oh, you don't have. Okay. No having. I'm offering you lack. You will not have that thing that you want. And then it becomes this like kind of vicious cycle where you're sitting there going, I don't have the thing that I want. And then the universe says, cool, granted, you don't have the thing that you want. And then you walk around without the thing that you want in perpetuity until you kind of change the way you're approaching it. So the antidote to that, or an antidote to that, is expressing gratitude. Because from this law of attraction perspective, if you walk around saying, I'm so grateful. I have so much stuff. Everything is here and I keep getting more. It's absolutely freaking amazing. Then the universe responds with that exact message. Oh, you have everything and you keep getting more. Cool. Here's everything. And you're going to keep getting more. And then the things that you're wanting, if you stop focusing on the lack side of it and you start focusing on the fact that you have so much, then the universe starts handing you the things that you wanted. So gratitude is super powerful in getting over that kind of lack barrier that people run into when they're desperately wanting something. So with all of these different aspects in mind, you have the law of attraction implications. You have the physiological implications. You have the changes in your body, the changes in your environment, the fact that you alter the way that people are reacting to you, the fact that you can use this as a tool to reduce drama when you're in conflict with other people. This all kind of begs the question, how do you do it? It's easy enough to just say, well, be grateful. I'm going to offer just a couple little tips, tricks, that kind of thing as to what you can do to start expressing some gratitude. So the first, I think, easiest one that I really like is you get up in the morning and the first thing you think of is like, what are you grateful for? I am grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I can get up at all. Even if you have injuries, even if you're missing a leg or an arm, or you just had an accident and you got some sort of injury, like whatever it is, if you get up and you say, here's what I do have, that starts to alter the trajectory for the rest of the day. And it really changes the way that you are feeling, and you're setting the tone for everything that's going to follow. And then you try to maintain that trajectory. One of the things that I like to do sometimes is I have a dry erase marker, and I'll go into my bathroom and I'll use the dry erase marker on the mirror, and I'll just write things, something you're grateful for, or some positive message, something like that. You can also set a journal next to your bed. And so the first thing you do when you wake up is you can just write out something you're grateful for. Just to do my own little cheap, shameless plug here. If one of the things and this started with just a blank journal for me. And I later created the guided journal, My Reality Generator, which you can find on the Embuffination website, or you can just go to myrealitygenerator.com if you're curious. But it has all sorts of guided prompts in there, and many of those prompts are related to gratitude, because gratitude is so freaking powerful that it just changes the trajectory of so much. So sitting down and actually writing, and there's something magical about writing, the act of writing something out. I don't know what it is, but and here again, there's research supporting this. I won't go into that right now, but there is just something magical about the act of writing something out and how that gets into your brain. So journaling is a great one. You can use the My Reality Generator, or grab a blank journal somewhere, or even get a just spiral round notebook somewhere and use that and just write some things that you're grateful for. Write yourself some positive messages, anything like that. Another big one is meditation. So I have talked in the past about gratitude-based meditations, and this is as simple as sitting there very quietly, I like doing this in kind of dark settings without a lot of distractions around. Kind of close your eyes, sit up straight, and just think about all the things that you're grateful for. And you just set a timer and you sit there, and for however long you've set your timer for, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, 5 minutes even, you just start thinking, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for this. And that's, remember, we had an experiment saying that just one time a week, somebody was writing a letter expressing their gratitude, and that had months of implication. What happens if you spend 15 minutes a day sitting there dwelling about all the things that you're grateful for? It's profound. This is also, meditation is a really useful one. Going back to that conflict, I have used this myself many times where I felt like I was in conflict with someone and I felt very, very angry or frustrated. I would sit there and say, all right, I'm going to do a meditation. I would sit down and think about all the things about that specific person that I could think of within whatever time frame I was giving myself that I was grateful for. And I could feel it when I interacted with that person again, how dramatically differently I was interfacing with them. So meditation is a big one. Cards. So this is something that I did a while ago where I went online and I found some business card templates and I altered them around. And I basically just said, hey, person that I'm handing this card to, I'm grateful for blank. And then I just put a bunch of blank lines. And then when I go out, sometimes I will handwrite into those blank lines something that somebody did that I'm grateful for. And I'll just give them the card and say, thank you. And here's why I'm grateful for that person. That just starts, whether it does something for them or not, I hope it does. I hope that they feel positive about whatever I said, but I also am hoping that it changes, and I know that it does, it changes me. It makes me start to feel like I'm more in that state of gratitude, right? Letters, we talked about that in the experiment. Writing a letter of gratitude, which is very much like the cards, just a little more formal, right? You're writing out a letter expressing the things that you're thankful for. You don't have to send these to people. You can just write them out and keep them, or you can send them to people. People often feel good if you write something about how grateful you are to them. At the law firm, my assistant is amazing at this. I will periodically, and I don't think I thank her enough for it, but I'll periodically in the mail, I will get a card and she'll just say all the stuff that she's grateful for about me and the law firm and the chance to work with us and all this stuff. And it's awesome. I imagine it makes her feel better. And every time I get it, I'm like, cool. And this is something you can do for people. Write out a card, write a thank you card, write a letter, anything like that, and send it to the person, or don't. You don't have to send it out to them. You can just write it out and sit on it just for the sheer benefit that it brings to you. In the same vein, you can go and just simply say to a person, hey, you did XYZ, and I'm very grateful that you're here and doing that, or that you exhibit whatever characteristics. Or just directly say to somebody, I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for you. Anytime you recognize you're doing something that feels complainy, whiny, negative, spend some time consciously shifting into gratitude. You can use any of these tools. And you don't have to just wait for when you're feeling whiny, but this should be the automatic response. When you start noticing that you are getting whiny or angry or curmudgeon-y, anything like that, shift into gratitude, shift into expressions of what you are grateful for, and use any of the tools that we just talked about, the meditation, the cards, the letters, the just journaling, anything. This is the Tude movement. This is what Tude is all about. And I challenge you today to employ something here, like employ one of these techniques. And I swear to you, this is profound. Over a course of a couple of years of doing this kind of thing on a regular basis, your life is going to be so different. And if you're already doing it, do it a little more. Gratitude is amazing. It is such a powerful tool in your emotional embuffination arsenal that you have to use it. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I think I probably said enough about gratitude for today. You probably get the idea at this point. So that's going to bring us to the end of today's show. I hope that you found this useful. I genuinely hope that you can take something away from this, make your life just a little bit better. And in the vein of gratitude, I'm going to say I am so grateful for everybody that has been listening. I am legitimately grateful for the support that I've received. Actually, just this last weekend, I did a convention and I had so many people just come out of the woodworks and say amazing things to me that made me feel great, and help me, I guess, further the brand, the Emotional Embuffination platform generally. And so I am grateful for everybody that's listening. And if you're hearing this, thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for even paying attention at all. And I legitimately hope that there's something here. When we take one of these gratitude concepts or multiple gratitude concepts, incorporate them into your life and live a better life. Don't forget, go sign up for the newsletter on my website, which is embuff.com. Remember, keep becoming more emotionally buff. Work on this all the time. Just like going to the gym, you don't go to the gym one day and say, I'm buff forever and never have to do it again. You keep regularly going. You make it a routine. Same thing with emotional embuffination. You got to work on this stuff daily, constantly, or even if not daily, on a regular basis. You just got to be constantly working on this. And the more you do it, the better your life is going to become. At the end of the day, I want you to be emotionally strong enough to go from saying things like, the struggle is real, to saying, what struggle? Thank you all for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a great week, and I will see you on the next show.